Coming up next on At Your Service, we'll be discussing how to keep your family safe. Stay tuned. Today on At Your Service, we'll be discussing how to prepare for emergencies. And we're joined today from two employees of community agencies that deal with emergency preparedness. So I'd like to welcome Jessica and Chrissy. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
So if you would, tell us a little bit about your offices and what you guys do individually.
Sure. So I'm Chrissy Calp with Office of Emergency Management in Anne Arundel County. So this is your local emergency management office. I do emergency management as far as outreach, but our office does a variety of things. We basically coordinate with all of our county departments. We also go out in the public and coordinate with businesses and local residents to prepare them. We do exercise and training with our departments. That way they're ready to respond to emergencies. And we basically write plans with them as well.
Okay. That's all on the local basis in Anne Arundel County.
Correct.
And how about you?
And I'm Jessica Nusbaum, and I'm with the Maryland Emergency Management Agency. And very similar to what Chrissy said, on the local level, we provide on the state level. So I also do outreach, but again on the state level. And our agency does that same coordination with state level resources, federal resources, National Guard, just depending on the situation.
Oh, okay.
So when we think about emergency preparation, what are some of the hazards that we should be preparing for as community members? And then maybe you can look at it from a local, because we have, Chrissy, you work for the local
Sure.
agency. And then Jessica, if you could talk about the hazards and when you would coordinate with some state emergencies.
Sure. So when you think about you and your family preparing, don't overwhelm yourself. Think about, if you're going to be making a plan or building a kit or those things, think of how you can do that together as a family and not overwhelm yourself specifically with a hazard. Typically if you're dealing with a snowstorm, an ice storm, those type of things, you're going to be sheltering in place, which means you're going to be staying at home with your family. And we're going to be talking a little bit later about kits and how you can do that. But in the event if you have to evacuate, maybe it's a hazardous chemical spill near your house or something like that, you're going to want to think about how you would evacuate, where you might be going, how you would be sheltering outside of your home. So don't overwhelm yourself with the specific hazards. Obviously, earthquake, that happened a couple years ago. We didn't think that was something we had to prepare for. So just make sure that you're thinking the basic things that you would need as far as, again, talking about that communication plan with your neighbors, your family members, your coworkers, making sure that your kids in school are safe and talking about what type of plans they would be doing, meeting places as far as if you're not all at the same place, maybe parents are at work, kids are at school, maybe somebody's at a daycare center. Think about those type of discussions you can have at home.
That's really interesting to think about.
Yeah. So what kind of family emergency plans are there? You mentioned a little bit about, hurricanes, but what kind of family plans are there for families?
When, at least, again, on the state level, and I believe it's the same for many jurisdictions, we look at an all hazards approach, so very similar to what Chrissy was saying, that you're going to have the same kind of communication plan regardless if it's a snowstorm, a hurricane, some other type of man-made disaster. So we're looking for the same kind of information, contact numbers for folks who are at work, contact numbers for schools, knowing where everybody is, at the time of the hazard. Also having a contact that is outside of the immediate area, so maybe somebody in another state, so that you can, if you have to leave the immediate area, you can go to them. So knowing who that is. And also making sure that they know that they are your contact on that plan. Also having a local contact, say something, heaven forbid, a house fire, so that you have somebody in the local area that you can rely on. So all of that type of information, as well as information on any medical conditions, so having doctors' phone numbers, veterinarians if you have pets, knowing what medications you're on, just all of that very pertinent information. Insurance, extremely important, so your homeowners, automobile, flood insurance, health insurance, all of that should be included in your family emergency plan. So it's all in one place, you know exactly where it is.
And so one of the things that I have a question about is how do you work together? Because let's say you have a snowstorm or you have, you know, a hurricane. When does it leave the local Anne Arundel County agency, and when does it tap into the state, and, you know, what does that look like?
Sure. So we basically work with each other on a daily basis. Our officers are communicating through conference calls, through emails, those type of things. If we know something is forecasted, a weather event, we're talking to Jessica and her team about how we can prepare, not only on the local level, what's going on statewide. So we have an overview of what's going on in the state of Maryland, not just Anne Arundel County. But as we're leading towards, you know, where we think that something's going to happen, the snow is now hitting
Right.
the ground. We're basically engaging on the local level, and we're giving that information up to the state of what we're doing. You know, what our public works people are doing out in the highways, what our fire departments and police departments doing, and other departments. We're giving that information up on the state level. Now, where Jessica comes in is if we have some type of disaster where we have exhausted all of our resources locally. We will reach out to the state level and ask them, can you guys, you know, help us find resources outside of what our capabilities are?
And what would that look like? If you could give an example, is it like something that might be common, or is it not common?
It just depends on the disaster and, you know, what resources we have. We do have a lot of jurisdictions around us that are able to step in and provide us with resources as well.
Gotcha.
But, you know, maybe it's as simple as we have a really large snowstorm, or maybe we have a hurricane and we have a lot of power lines down and roads. Maybe we need some equipment to open those roads up. So we
Gotcha.
could reach up to Jessica at the state level and basically say, hey, we need additional plow trucks, or we need utility
Gotcha.
trucks, or those type of things, and they could help us find those type of resources.
Okay, because I think that's what the question is: how do you know, collaborate with those resources, and what does it look like? So when something does happen in Anne Arundel County or in Baltimore County, or where the snow is, that people have a context for it, because power is a big one.
Yes.
You hear they're on with BEGE on the radio every, you know, snowstorm talking about
Correct.
electricity.
And you hear code red. You hear code red. What is that?
Great point. Code Red is basically Anne Arundel County's emergency notification system.
Okay.
So if you're living here in the county, if you have a business, maybe you're working in here, you've gotten a phone call from either the county level or the city Office of Emergency Management letting you know what's going on. Maybe the police department is letting you know that vandalism is going on in your community. Maybe the Office of Emergency Management is letting you know to shelter in place. And the great thing about the system is we can do a county-wide call. We can break it down to do a zip code. We can do a street. You know, whatever we need to do, we can get that information out. But what we do is we encourage everyone to register, because the information we have is landlines, and now we know today with technology, not everybody has a landline anymore. So we encourage you basically to register with our office, and we can send out a message on your cell phone to get a phone call. You can get an email and a text message. And that can be as many phone numbers as you want to register with your household. And we do have a form that you can fill out. Basically, if you go to Anne Arundel County's government website, there is a link that's called Code Red, and it's off basically to the left-hand side of our webpage, and you click on it and you can register. If you don't have access to a computer, you can call our office at 410-222-0600, and someone in our office can help register you with that.
It's fantastic. I didn't even know that, because you know, we laugh because in Anne Arundel, for the school system, we have codes, and ours is, you know, code blue, code red. So code red is pretty much nobody comes, you know, it's completely the school system shut down. You know, it's not board employees. So code blue, partial, it's like school or closed, but central office is still open. So that's totally different. So I just kind of want to caution educators that are watching that it's not the same code red.
No. It's a mass notification system for emergencies is what ours is. And
Now, is that just within Anne Arundel County, or how's that differ from state?
On the state level, we don't have a messaging system like that. A lot of the individual jurisdictions do. So Code Red would be specific to Anne Arundel County. As far as messaging on the state level, we do have a Facebook page that we put out information. So if you go to Facebook and just look up Maryland Emergency Management Agency, you'll get to that. We have a Twitter account that's at MDMEMA. So again, we send out a lot of tweets when events are happening, and also our website, www.mema.maryland.gov. There will be information on specific hazards as we're in the middle of them.
So you talked a little bit about training. So to get the word out, other than Code Red, what kind of training do you provide the people that are involved with your collaborative agencies? What kind of training are you involved in, and so that more and more people are aware of safe kits and things that you do provide for the community to keep them safe?
So we do training, like you said, with our partners in basically preparedness, response, recovery, mitigation, those type of things, the different phases of areas that we would work with. And we do that with our county partners. But we also go out in the community and we educate. So there's two different pieces of training that we do. So on the side that we deal with basically our county agencies and our state agencies and federal, we will do training as far as emergency plans, what the planning is, basically talk about what their roles and responsibilities are, and we'll test that to find out, do we have the right pieces of equipment to get the job done? Do we have the right procedures in place? Have we thought about all the planning aspects that go along with that? Now, when we go out in the community, we talk more about how you can prepare you and your families, whether it's you're at home or you're at work or even in your car. You never know when a disaster is going to strike, so you have to think about any place you might be and how you could prepare and mitigate the situation yourself. So basically, we go out and we talk a little bit about the emergency communication plans, like Jessica and I talked about a little earlier. We talk about how you build a kit, and checking on your neighbors. Thinking about your pets, those type of things. So it's a little bit of individual preparedness and thinking about how your family can be safe.
Yeah, so the businesses and your partners, if a business owner wanted to, or a daycare, wanted to have your services, do they just contact you or sign up through
For
the
us
website?
to come out and do some education? Yes,
Okay.
definitely. We can go out and we've done presentations for church groups. We've done presentations for private schools, public schools, Boy Scouts, those type of things. So anybody that calls our office and wants some types of presentation or education material, we can definitely coordinate that with them.
Well, I think it's kind of interesting because, like I was saying, kids and families and parents really need to prepare because, you never know. In this way, we've had situations happen within our state and our community. So I think that that's really important. And I think for most parents, I think sometimes people just don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. We hear that a lot.
Like, oh, that fire I never thought my house could catch on fire. Or, I thought, it was going to snow, but, we've never had this happen before. It's like when a storm will hit Ocean City and people stay, and there's that huge risk because they think we've lived here for 10 years. It'll just blow by us.
Right. And the farther away you get from a large-scale incident, the less it's on your mind. So, after Hurricane Sandy came through, or Superstorm Sandy came through, a lot of people then were thinking, oh, we need to be prepared, we need to have this ready for our families. And now that we're a few years away from that, it's much less of a concern. Oh, we just had that a couple years ago. We don't have to worry about that right now. Or once we get past the season.
Right.
So we're getting past, or we've already
Correct.
gotten past hurricane
Yep.
season, but now we're getting into winter storm season.
Right.
And again, if you take that all hazards approach, you're already prepared. If you prepared yourself for hurricane season, you should have those same supplies on hand with a few adjustments that you need for winter as
Speaking
well.
of supplies, we're going to go to a short break, but after the break, we're going to talk about these supplies and bring them out and talk to them.
I'm Kathy Shaffer, the new host of Parents Corner on AACPS TV. Each month we'll cover topics that interest you and me as county parents. I'd love to hear about your ideas, feedback, and upcoming school events. Email me at parentscornertv@gmail.com.
Welcome back, and welcome back, ladies. Looks like we have a lot in front of us. Kits. I know our families should be prepared. So if you could tell us a little bit about what type of kits that our families should consider possibly having in their home.
Sure. We'll talk about a few different types of kits today. And the one thing to keep in mind, because if you look online at different, websites that talk about developing your emergency supply kit, they're very comprehensive, and it can get very overwhelming trying to think, where am I going to keep all of this stuff? If you live in a small apartment, you can't have your underground bunker full of, of those emergency supplies. But there are a couple key items that, regardless of what your situation is, you can have on hand. One thing, obviously, is going to be water. Very, very important. And the general guideline is to have a gallon of water per person per day for 3 days. If you have pets, you want to consider also having additional water for them. But at least a gallon of water per person in your household. Usually they recommend that you go out and buy the pre-filled bottles that you can get from the grocery store, from Walmart for 99 cents. Some people like to fill up their own bottles. A couple things to remember with that is to make sure that they are clean, to wash them out extremely well, which can be difficult, especially with some of the juice bottles that have the more intricate designs in the plastics.
Right.
Sometimes when the juices break down in there, it can create proteins that will then taint your water.
True.
So if you're going to be refilling those bottles, just make sure that they're clean and that you're cycling out the water every so often so it doesn't get stagnant. Also food, same thing, enough for your family members for a 3-day time period. Keeping in mind any kind of dietary restrictions, allergies. So if you have a child with peanut allergies, you don't want your staple food to be peanut butter.
Right.
So just keeping all of those things in mind. When it comes to food and water, making sure that you're checking expiration dates. And as the expiration dates are getting closer, that you're cycling those items in with your regular daily food and buying new items for your kids. So then also a small first aid kit is a good idea. You never know what's going to happen. Bumps and bruises happen on a daily basis, but they can also happen during emergencies. So having a first aid kit, personal hygiene supplies, so at least some soap, maybe some moist towelettes, baby wipes, whatever, to just keep yourself clean. And then also some cleaning supplies for your area. So some kind of maybe spray bleach, paper towels, other toilet paper, it goes along with the personal hygiene. And then definitely a flashlight, because power outages accompany so many of these different hazards that we have. So making sure that if it's a battery-powered flashlight, you also have extra batteries on hand, or you can get one of the hand crank flashlights that you don't even need to worry about having batteries. This one has a couple different features on it, so you find all different, emergency management has kind of, with all of the preppers that are out there, has kind of, come into the limelight. So there are so many different versions of different things that you can buy. So this one also has a siren. It has an AM FM radio. You can charge your cell phone with this. So, it's an all-in-one, or just have a basic flashlight. The radio is definitely important, though, to listen to any changes in your weather forecast or any kind of important messaging that might be coming through from either the local emergency management or the state emergency management, just so you know kind of what route to take. Can opener, very important if you have canned goods, because unless you have all pop tops, if you don't have a can opener, you're not going to be able to get into those. So just one other thing to think about. This is a pretty neat tool that, again, we're seeing more people have. So it's to help with your water shut off, your gas shut off, and then also if you have to dig or if you have to pry a door open. So there's a few different uses for a tool like this, or just having other types of tools on hand that you can use if you need to. So again, in your home, a lot of different things to think about. One thing that's very important, and we kind of touched on it a little bit before, is about important documentation. So those insurance documents, you want to have copies of all of your important documents somewhere accessible, that you know where they are in case of an emergency. This also includes your birth certificate, social security cards, again, medical information, insurance information, marriage certificates, divorce certificates, death certificates, all of that. One option is also to scan all of those documents and keep them onto a USB drive that's secured with a password, and have that in your emergency supply kit. So at least you have access to the phone numbers and all of your account numbers and things like that. So big kits for at home. Then you also want to have a more pared down version for in your vehicle, because sometimes winter weather is coming up, sometimes we get stuck in our vehicles. We need to have some things. So again, having a supply of water on hand, some kind of, nuts, power bars, things like that to, give us a quick boost. A blanket. Blankets are also important, not just in the winter, but say, tornadoes storm season is happening, and you can use this to cover yourself in case debris would come through the window, that broken glass isn't going to get on you, that you're protecting yourself with that blanket. A whistle to get attention for help, some kind of poncho, because again, a lot of the hazards that we get come with a lot of precipitation, some kind of emergency blanket, which I know we have here somewhere, just to keep yourself warm. So all of those, glow sticks or flashlight, something also in your vehicle for that. And again, sometimes we can't get back to our homes after emergencies, so if you keep another USB version of those documents, you know that you always have them on hand.
What about an extra set of keys? I've heard some people have a set of keys like for their vehicle or their house.
Definitely a great idea. And again, you can kind of customize your emergency supply kit. So extra keys for vehicles, or for, if you have several vehicles, making sure that you have all of those. Obviously, if you have children, your kit is going to look a little bit different than somebody that doesn't, because you want to have, if you have an infant, you're going to have formula, diapers, wipes. For children, they also recommend to have things that are going to keep them busy during these times. So coloring books, a second favorite stuffed animal, because if they're always sleeping with their favorite at night, an alternate stuffed animal, a blanket, just something that's going to help to soothe them during these times. And one other special population, if you will, is pet owners.
Yes.
So making sure that you have supplies for them as well.
You ladies have pets?
I do. Yes.
Have you thought about getting a kit together for them?
Oh, not yet. I am now.
Well, I know now that I have to get a kit together for my family too.
Yeah, definitely. So you definitely want to think about your pets in an emergency too. A couple things that go along with that is make sure you bring your pets inside. You want them with you, you want them safe, so you got to think about them and their health safety as well. Even as coming up on snowstorms, basically any type of weather or anything, if you're letting your pets out to go to the bathroom, make sure you're checking their paws when they come back in. You could get the salt underneath their paws, make sure you're wiping that off. Or, during hurricane season, you have debris, different things like that. So make sure you're checking your pets and making sure that they're safe and they're comfortable as well. But Jessica and I brought some items along today to show you how to build a kit for pets as well. Okay. So a first aid kit as well for your pet, just talking about the safety of them. So make sure you have some items there together for them. You're going to want to have food supplies ready for them. These are kind of packaged and shrink wrap tight, so it doesn't take up much room, but we have one here for cats and one for dogs. So you make sure that you have them and they don't really expire the way they do the regular foods. Toys. You're going to want to make sure that you have a toy for them in the kit. Obviously, we have a little mouse here that they could play with. If you're going basically to a shelter, we do accept pets in our shelters, domestic animals. Oh, so wow. If we're opening up a public shelter, you can bring your cat, you can bring your dog. We recommend that you do bring your own food dishes. So these are ones that just kind of fold right down in the kit. You would also bring them in your own cage. And if you have leashes, we recommend that as well. So you as the pet owner would be responsible for feeding your animal and walking your animal and those type of things as well. And it's separated from the general public in the shelter, but you would be able to go over and visit and play and take care of your animal as well. Even the emergency blanket, you never know what's going to happen. Maybe your pet gets injured and you have to do those type of things. Along with the package that Jessica was talking about for your medical records and important documents, make sure you have them for your pets as well. Their vaccinations, any type of medications that they might be on, those type of things, because you're going to want to present them at the shelter or have them ready in case an emergency that you might need them and you're not scrambling for paperwork at the last minute. I recommend whatever kit you're putting together with your family, make it fun. Do it together as a family. Maybe not everybody can afford to go out and buy all these kits at once. Put 1 or 2 items on your shopping list a week, or a couple items a month. And as you go to the grocery store, the hardware store, those type of things, pick up these and start putting them in your kit to slowly build it, and then eventually you'll have your kit together.
Wow.
Yeah.
One thing that can be helpful with that, MEMA also has a free app on Android and Apple devices called Maryland Prepares. And within that app, there's a checklist of emergency supply kits, various different types of emergency supply kits, and then the items you want to consider having in them. And you can create a checklist there. So you walk around your house, check off what you already have at your home, and then you see what isn't checked off, that becomes your shopping list. So like Chrissy said, then you can go and pick up a couple of things, check them off, and it'll save it in there so that you can see as time goes on what you still need.
Right, so you mentioned MEMA. So what does MEMA stand for? Because we have lots of acronyms, you know, and so I just want to make sure that when somebody is watching this show, that they'll be like, oh, where can I find that?
Sure, and MEMA is the agency that I work for, the Maryland Emergency Management Agency.
Great. So this kind of shows me, I was thinking about my family and my children, but I didn't even think about my pet. You know, it's kind of not that I don't care for my pet, it's just I just didn't think, it wasn't even in my thought process that the cat would also need a little water ball, water and food. But the fact that I didn't realize shelters took animals, and you talk about domestic animals, is it just dogs and cats?
That gets a little tricky.
That's what I was going to say.
So it is basically just dogs and cats what they do accept. So what we do recommend is build on your networking system. Maybe your neighbor can take in other animals. Maybe a family member outside of the area that's affected. Even some veterinarian places do take animals during a disaster, to help shelter them in place.
So it's really important for that, before something happens, that preparation with a neighbor. So if it wasn't a community, it could have been something within their house that they had to leave, that they form those partnerships, those collaborations with, whether it's the vet or a neighbor or another family member.
So it goes back to your communication plan. So you're talking to your family members, you're talking to your neighbors, you're talking to your coworkers and seeing how you guys can help each other.
That's important.
And probably yearly, it's probably a good idea to evaluate your communication plan with your children even. Okay, where do we keep our pet safety kit, our emergency kit? Where do we keep? And this is something you could just put in the dog carrier and just take it out or whatever. But as long as all the family members know what the plan is, where the items are, the list, what have you.
That knowledge is crucial.
Yes.
And it would adjust based on a variety of things. It could be once a year, or it could be every 3 months, just depending on what's going on in your family and in your life. Talk a little bit, and we have about another minute. If people are interested in finding more information on being prepared, you discussed a little bit about having a Facebook page or Twitter, but what would you suggest for the beginner, like Christy and I, that are like, okay, we need to put a kit together?
Within MEMA's app, that Maryland Prepares app, there is information on preparing, what to do before, during, and after all kinds of different events. The information on that app links back to FEMA's ready.gov information. So obviously I'm going to recommend downloading that app, because then it's right at your hands, with your cell phone. But FEMA's preparedness website is www.ready.gov. All of that information is located there. So you can get information on preparing for hazards, on your kits, the various types of kits. Again, MEMA has a website, Anne Arundel County Emergency Management has a website, our Twitter and Facebook accounts, so all kinds of information. Or you can reach out to us as well if you have individual questions.
And so you pretty much are tagged along with the Maryland website, then you could pull up every district's emergency preparedness
You can
website.
go into the Maryland website and basically go on and find our county, but we do have our separate website, and that's basically just www.aacounty.org/OEM. Stands for Office of Emergency Management, the OEM.
Great.
And then we have our own Facebook and Twitter account as well.
What we can do is at the end, after the taping, we can put those resources up online for viewers to watch. But I just wanted to thank you both today for being here. This has been so informative and just so needed for the community. So I just wanted to thank you for joining us. See you next time.
Welcome to Anne Arundel County Public Schools' annual Hispanic Women's Day. This event was created in 2012 to honor and recognize the dedication of Hispanic mothers and their support of the school system. The purpose of the event is to educate and inspire Hispanic women to take better care of themselves in order to provide better care for their children and families. The event theme is Un Día para Mí, or A Day Just for Me, in which we partner with other county departments and community organizations. Participants will have the opportunity to hear from speakers on various topics, including empowerment, health and disease prevention, positive parenting, stress relief, amongst others. On behalf of the Planning Committee, we'd like to take this time to thank you for watching and learning about this wonderful event. To learn more about how you can get involved with Un Día para Mí, please see our contact information and link on the screen.